Lems makes one of my favorite boots, the boulder boots. I call my shop slippers because they're wide, they're comfy, they look pretty good because it hides how wide they are with this mock toe stitch. But they're not perfect, but I really like them. And so when I saw that they had kind of a gym sneaker in their Primal 2s, I was like, man, if these could be my gym slippers in the same way these are my shop slippers, they'd be perfect. I'd be comfortable all day, every day. I love these Lems. Like, it should be perfect. Then we cut them apart as part of that barefoot gym sneaker video where we compared a bunch of them. They just didn't hit the mark for me. You know, there's a few things I just didn't like, and so they weren't my gym slippers. So when they came out with the Primal 3s, it intrigued me. So we're gonna cut them in half, run them through our test to really see if they've made the improvements to make these my perfect gym slippers, or if it's just more marketing and branding to sell basically the same product under a slightly different name. These are our new boot breaker insoles. We've been developing this for months and months and months. This whole box is full of insoles that we've been testing, prototyping, figuring out what works, what doesn't work to finally develop an insole that wasn't really available on the market that solves the problem that everybody has with this style of high quality boot, which is they're miserable to break in. They're so hard to break in because you're standing on like 6 millimeters of rock hard leather, which is great because it's really durable, it breaks in the shape of your foot, but getting through that is tough. And even after you have them broken in, they're just never gonna be quite as squishy and soft underfoot as a foam-based boot. And that's why we developed the boot breaker insoles, because they're thin enough, it's not gonna screw up your sizing, it's not gonna cram your toes, but it's still enough material that's gonna give you that squish, it's gonna give you the comfort while you're breaking them in, and after they're broken in, you just leave them in. You get ultra comfortable heritage style boots with all the benefits of the hard leather and all the materials with having just a little bit of extra squish in there. These will work great for your heritage boots, for your regular boots, for your shoes if you want a little extra squish. So they'll fit in basically anything because we send it with a sizing guide that has a QR code so you can watch the video, everything you need to know to make sure these fit exactly how you want them to inside of your footwear. So add a little comfort to your footwear and check out the boot breakers below. So what were the issues I had with the Primal 2s? Well, they had like negative arch support, which you'd think for a barefoot shoe they would have at least flat arch support, and it was caused by this arch here that as soon as you stood in them, it would flatten out and actually be lower than the heel and the ball of your foot because there's less foam right there. There was no leather to be seen anywhere on these. They're like vegan friendly, but for me, I like leather, obviously. There also wasn't enough squish underfoot for me to be a dedicated gym shoe, and I just didn't like the look of them. I think they look fine, but I don't know, they didn't hit the mark for me on the aesthetics. And to help round out this video, my friends down in Provo, the Sever Bros, gave me their likes and dislikes because they're really into the barefoot world and I wanted to get their opinion on it because I'm obviously not as deep in there. I like a little squish. I like some of the attributes of normal shoes in a barefoot shoe, so here's their dislikes.
Weston, thanks for having us on. Folks, my name is Chris. My brother Eric and I have a YouTube channel called The Sons of Sever. Our motto there is there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear. When it comes to outdoor and adventure gear for our feet, we always turn to barefoot style shoes. This is actually what connected us with Weston. We were super impressed with his collaboration with Jim Green on the Barefoot African Ranger. It was cool to see a heritage boot meet barefoot features. It was something we thought the barefoot space desperately needed. We mostly focus on our likes and our dislikes of a shoe based on our experience with it. So talking about the Primal 2, I actually ran a half marathon in this guy, and that informed a lot of the opinions that I have of the updated Primal 3. I'm going to start off by talking about our likes of the Primal 3, then I'm going to pass things over to Eric and he is going to talk about our dislikes. Getting into our likes of the shoe, let's start with the barefoot features that we love in it. It has a fantastically wide toe box, it is zero drop, and it's not as flexible as we would like because the stack height's a little bit higher than we would want. Eric's going to talk about that in our dislikes, but it is more flexible than some of the mainstream shoe companies out there. Keying in on that wide toe box, Lems has 3 categories of toe box: medium, wide, and widest. This is in the widest category, and the cool thing about it is I think Lems does a good job at hiding it between the contouring, so the shape, and the paneling that they do. I think they do a good job at streamlining the look of that toe box. I know that Weston has his clown to cool scale. He'll tell you where this shoe falls on that for him, but for me, it's gonna lean more towards the cool side. That's gonna make this shoe really versatile, in my opinion. Those are just a couple of our likes of the Primal 3. If you want all of our likes, head over to our YouTube channel and check out our in-depth review of the Primal 3. But for now, I'm gonna pass things over to Eric, and he is gonna talk about our dislikes of the shoe.
Hey there everybody, how's it going?
going? Like my brother Chris said, my name is Eric. I'm the other half of the Sons of Sever YouTube channel, and I'm here to talk about our dislikes when it comes to the Lems Primal 3. The first thing that I'm going to say is that we weren't too happy that they actually added some stack height to this shoe when it compares to the Primal 2. So Lems is a brand that's known for making barefoot or minimalist shoes, so a lot of people are going to their website looking for shoes that have very little stack height, and the Primal 2 was their most minimal shoe in their lineup, so it was a bit of a surprise to us that they actually added a little bit overall. If you're wearing the insole with this thing, it added 2.5 millimeters. Now it's sitting at 14.5, whereas before with the Primal 2 it was sitting at 12. So for people who want the most ground feel that they can have and the most flexibility out of their shoes, that's not a welcome addition, and it definitely wasn't to us. That goes in the face of some people like Weston, for example. The stack height for him isn't such a big deal. He actually might want a little bit more because it provides a little bit more comfort underfoot if you're not adjusted to barefoot shoes. So it kind of depends on which camp you're in, if that's a good thing or a bad thing for you, but for us is definitely a dislike.
So now what is this shoe? Well, the brand is Lems, the style is the Primal 3. They weigh 9.5 ounces compared to the Primal 2s that weighed 8.5 ounces, so a little bit more weight. They retail for $120. They're made in China, and the way that they position the new Primal 3s is, attention Primal 2 enthusiasts, get ready to refresh your footwear game with the all-new Primal 3, designed with your feedback in mind. This latest iteration maintains many of the signature features of the Primal 2, such as a zero-drop platform, wide toe box, and introducing exciting enhancements. If you want a pair of these, be sure to check them out via link in my description. So what did they actually change on this? Or, you know, or did they just change a few things like, hey, it's new and improved and buy it now? Or is it actually improved? Well, starting with the upper, they say, and fear not, loyal fans. While the Primal 3 boasts exciting new features, we've kept the upper consistent with the beloved Primal 2. So is that true? It seems to be. It looks exactly the same through and through, except for one thing that they don't even mention, which is a big improvement, because the Primal 2s have this tiny little pull tab. I can't even get my pinky into it. The Primal 3s got a nice thick pull tab, get your whole finger in there. So that's one improvement. So 1 point to Lems for improvements. But unfortunately for me, there's no leather in the upper still from the Primal 2. And obviously it would make it heavier, but they'd be more durable. But for whatever reason, a lot of the barefoot people are also vegans, and they'd much rather wear plastic wrapped around their foot. To each their own. You tell me what you think is better for the environment. So 1 point for the improvement of the pull tab, but negative 1 point for not having leather in here. And obviously it's subjective and all the other caveats, but I wish they'd throw some leather in here. Now if we look at the lining, they don't really say anything about the lining, and looking at the lining, there's really no visible differences whatsoever. So 0 improvement points because there was no improvements. But once again, going a little bit hard on Lems because I like Lems. They have this heel counter or this heel layer here that looks like it's leather, but it's just a suede fabric. And I once again wish that was leather because I want my gym shoes to be durable. I really want them to be able to take a beating in the gym and last for a long time. And a leather internal heel counter would definitely improve that because that's the one spot that I always wear my shoes through, and a lot of people do. So once again, negative 1 point for Lems for not giving me any leather. Then if we look at the insoles, they say it has a wider heel and midfoot to distribute your weight more evenly. So let's see if that's actually true by comparing the insoles. And one interesting thing is they use different foam, and this is actually an improvement that they don't really talk about, because the previous one is just a really open cell foam and it bottoms out immediately. It just doesn't last nearly as long as most other insoles. Maybe it's a little bit more squishy, but this is an improved version is what I'm getting at, because this is a little bit harder. This comes in at a 40 short A, whereas the old ones are a 22 short A. So you might not get as much squish, but you're gonna get squish for longer, and it's not gonna bottom out as fast. So 1 point for the improvement board. But now let's line these up and see if they are actually wider anyway, and it doesn't look like it at all anywhere. Maybe here on the side, but that's not, I don't think that's the last that's any wider. So I'm not sure if wider heel and midfoot that they're talking about is the outsole, or if it's actually the insole and where your foot sits. So a potential minus 1 point for Lems for the confusing description. But let's see if it's the outsole they're talking about, not the insole. So if we take our caliper here and measure the ball, or the heel, compare that to the heel here, you can see there's quite a bit of width added to there. And where that heel, I didn't like how rocking it was and how unstable it was. That's a nice improvement, because that's flat along a lot more surface area there. Then what about the midfoot? So we take that right across the ball of the foot at its widest point, compare that to the new 3s, and it is wider. It's not as it's not as much of a difference as the heel, but it is wider by a quarter of an inch, you know, a little bit more than that. So I think that's what they were talking about. Still a little bit confusing because it made it seem like it was wider underfoot, like the last was wider, but really it's the outsole that's wider. So I'm gonna take off the potential negative point and give them 1 point for actually improving that, because that does improve the functionality of this shoe in my opinion. And one flaw that's inherent to this style of shoe, where the outsole is a blown rubber. It comes in at a 55 short A. They call it Lems rubber, which is an air injected rubber. The good aspects of that is it's really soft, it's really squishy, it's flexible and light, but they just aren't as grippy and durable and long lasting as an actual solid rubber outsole. And that's why on my shop slippers here, you end up wearing through them pretty quick compared to a solid rubber outsole. But it's a trade-off, you know, and so for the gym, it's not a big deal to me, but it's worth mentioning. And then really the last thing that I'm actually very glad that they did is the sizing, because I didn't like how before they just only did the full sizes, and for people that need half sizes like me, the 10 was too small, the 11 was too big. I wanted it right in the middle at 10.5. So they finally did give the options of half sizes in their words, available in half sizes across the board, because when it comes to comfort, we believe every inch counts. So a point for improvement for Lems, and a bonus point for throwing in a joke in the description. Not sure if that was intentional or not, but I respect if it is. I love that. So now let's cut this thing in half and really see if they improved the #1 flaw I had with this boot. The thing that I just that made me not ever really wear these was it's that arch support, or the lack thereof, that gives you the negative arch support. Let's cut them in half and see if they are actually better. All right, we got them cut in half. If you're not subscribed, consider just clicking that little subscribe button as the B-roll plays of the opening of these. It helps us out a lot, helps us afford to do this and continue to grow. So let's open them up and see what's inside. So did they fix that problem of this negative arch support? But as you can see, it's pretty even all the way across the board. So finally they fixed that issue that was my #1 thing I just did not like about it. So 1 point for improvements for Lems. And it looks like they added a little bit more foam across the board, which I like. I like a little bit more squish. So 1 extra point for Lems for improving that. Some of the real deep barefoot people are gonna be, oh no, we got it. I wanna feel the ground. So just walk barefoot then, like actually barefoot. We need some squish. Some of us like to be comfortable and have some squish underneath our foot. So what about a little bonus round before we get to the Severs tallying up their scores? Because the last thing I think they could improve, and obviously this is very subjective, I just didn't dig the style overall. You know, it's fine, it's good enough, but I wasn't like, dang, these are nice looking. So did they improve the style enough to where I'd give it an extra bonus point? No, because they're pretty much the same. You know, they didn't really change much when it comes to the aesthetic of it, so no bonus points for that. But keep in mind, people aren't buying these for style, they're buying them because of the wide toe box, the zero drop, all the comfort. You know, these are more function-based rather than form. What about the does it come in black? Bonus point? Yes, it does. I like an all black gym shoe. I just don't like seeing like white shoes, and I don't know, you know what I mean. If you like black shoes, you know what I'm talking about. Are the girls gonna look at me funny in the gym while wearing these around? Am I gonna look like I'm wearing flippers or duck shoes? I don't think so. I think they pass pretty well, especially in all black, and even though I don't love the style, they're still stylish enough that they kind of hide the paneling, and it makes them a little bit of an optical illusion that similar to the Boulder boot where the stitch kind of hides that. They do a pretty good job of hiding. They still look wide, but I don't think they're enough that people are like, what is he wearing? You know, I think they pass, so bonus point. So now to the Sever Bros points, and I'll be back to tally them all up. So here's the Sever Bros.
The last thing I want to key in on is the sole improvements over the Primal 2. I know Weston's talked about it a little bit, but the biggest issues with this shoe were the contouring that kind of gave some arch support, and then also the heel was just a little too round for people. Now it's funny, your heel is round, but that rounded heel made people feel unstable, and I do think that the shoe feels less stable overall than the updated Primal 3 with that nice flat sole. Now what's interesting is if you look back at the heel, it is still somewhat rounded, but if you tilt it up, we do have like 2-ish inches of flatness here at the bottom. That flatness is going to be important for the different things that you might want to use this thing for, especially with that wide toe box. We have a lot of surface area on this sole. That's going to lend itself really well to road running, really well to trail running where you're not 100% sure all the time what you're stepping on. That wider sole is going to keep you more stable, and then it's going to perform really, really nicely in the gym, which I've loved this for. That extra surface area really allows you to grip the ground and helps you push through the floor, whether you're pulling weight up or pushing it up. That flat sole is really going to facilitate that.
And the second thing that I'll say is that we're not huge fans of these IBR outsoles. Weston already kind of talked about the injection blown rubber that Lems uses for a lot of their outsoles, and we just wish that they would go with a full rubber instead. There's a ton of different barefoot brands out there like Fieldgrounds and Balenka and Splay who use full rubbers, and their shoes are still very light and they're still very flexible. That's the whole point of this IBR outsole. It's so that it can be light, it's so it can be flexible, but the durability takes a really big hit on that. And I know that if I use these too much, like the other Lems shoes that I've had that have this same type of outsole, it's just gonna wear really, really quickly on me. And that is a bit of a bummer. Alright, so there's our take on the shoe, just a little bit of a different spin from Weston's, and our channel definitely does things a little bit differently than he does, but we hope that you will come and check it out. We have a ton of reviews on shoes, and they're very experience based. We take these things, and like you can see in the B-roll footage of us, we take them on trail runs, we take them out on the pavement, and we do everything that we can to push their limits, and then let you know what we think about them. So we think that that kind of experience goes very well hand in hand with the technical information that Weston brings when he cuts these things in half and shows you how they're built. So big shout out to him. We're so grateful for this opportunity and this platform to come and speak with you and give you a little bit of a taste of what our channel is like. Again, we hope that you'll come over and follow us there, and hopefully that'll add value to your research as you're looking at different shoes that you might be in the market for. So thanks again, and we're gonna send it back over to Rose Anvil now.
So now here are the final points tallied up with the positive improvements, with even counting in some of the negative stuff. To me, it clearly looks and sees and feels like they've improved the shoe a good amount. There's still a few things that I'd like to see changed, as you can see from the negative points, but they're also mostly subjective and not everyone agrees with all the different points. So are these finally my gym slippers? Right now they are. But like I mentioned, there's still some room for improvement. I could be convinced by a different shoe to actually be my gym slipper. So let me know what you think could beat these shoes. And thanks again to the Sever Bros for their footage and hopping on the camera with us and getting some real barefoot people's opinions on these. Thanks for all your support. Go check out the Sever Bros video if you want a more in-depth view into their opinions and why they like things and why they didn't like certain things, and where we disagreed on a couple points. So check those out below, and thanks for all your guys' support. See ya.